out of your control. Because digital TV is funny, because penetration, once it hits a certain level, it becomes commonplace. And people didn't know they made a shift in some of the technology changes. It just happens around them.
Exactly what I say, it's all about that relevance, isn't it? It's about, well, my wife is excellent at using Sky Plus and I'm rubbish at it, you know, and she expects me to be good and I'm just not. And it's like, they're the same, she's got no interest in Twitter or how it works because it doesn't meet that need. As soon as that technology came that provided with something that she wanted, she learned it like that. And I think that's the same for lots of people.
I think Matt was looking for a 0.5 minutes. But just coming back to some of the things that particularly Laura was talking about right back at the beginning about the humanity of this, and I've been following a Twitter account called Corporate Brand for the last few days. I don't know if the rest of you have come across it, but it's basically all of the egregious worst of brands trying to connect with people through social media, and this kind of pathetic neediness of wanting to be liked all the time. So I guess my question to the panel is, do people really connect with brands, or do people connect with people? And how do you bring the humanity inside the brand out, rather than try and hide it all the time, hide so to corporate and so on?
I guess it's on a case basis, but for example, some brands will allow some members of staff, whether it's salespeople, whoever, to run their own accounts, either as separate Twitter accounts or one corporate Twitter account, but it's really clear that it's an individual and they'll rotate and they'll say, hi, it's David today and I'm going to be manning the account for the next 3 days, so, and they can put their own opinions on there, so that's the humanity. Same with blogs, that, you know, if you allow people to speak with their own voice and it isn't always we at, you know, insert name, the nation's greatest financial institution, comma, so if you keep it just as a human thing, I think that's where people do genuinely connect with brands, is when they know that there are people and kind of Zappos type of approach where it's like, you know, sales agents are real people who talk about stuff that you're doing at the weekend and their points of view and stuff. I know they'll have corporate guidelines, but you know it's an individual, it's not just, they're espousing the brand values, but they're an individual and not just the corporate kind of statement getting tweeted out, just as one example.
I'm going to qualify that slightly by saying people people like brands that they want people to know that they like.
Yeah,
because actually, I don't necessarily, as a consumer, you don't necessarily want everyone to know what your actual behaviour is. When Spotify started posting on Facebook what people were listening to, that scared the bejesus out of me because I didn't want the world to know what I'm listening to and things like that in the shower. Yeah, no, I switched it off. But so there's a self-selection and moderation point of view because people represent themselves. Particularly, I guess there's a difference between Facebook and Twitter, but on Facebook, you represent what people, you want your public persona. And you would like brands that you would wear it as a badge. You'd wear Ted Baker, a brand you don't mind wearing it outwardly in real life, which I'm not referring to, but so you'll actively look for the brands that you think are cool to wear as a badge. And then you read news stories or something on the Guardian or Yahoo or something, and it automatically posts to your Facebook, and you're like, oh, I need to learn how to undo it, because you don't necessarily want everyone to know what you're really doing. You want to moderate what you're doing. I think the difference is on Twitter, you will follow brands. It's not the public what you're actually consuming and who you're following and what who your follow list is. But people will see who you're interacting with. So you might DM a company, your agile provocateur, rather than going, hey, where's my order? Whereas actually, if it's carrying million, that's fine, it's quite cool. So I think that to bear that in mind in terms, because it isn't just the brand having that interaction, we are as people too. So you do kind of moderate how you do that.
Can I add to that as well? I think a good question for brands to consider as well is that I think almost every brand does have somebody out there who wants to engage in it, who wants to spark off it, sometimes it's big brands and they just want to touch it almost like a celebrity. You know, if you look at some of the celebrity Twitter accounts and look at some of the stuff that people send in. I saw one the other day that said, hey Randy, I think you're amazing, I hope you're having an amazing Christmas day with your daughter name, son name and your wife name. It was like, God, that's so creepy. But and that begs the question: does a brand want to engage? We're talking here like, yeah, we want to engage, but do we? Look at Burberry as a great example. The amount of people that want to engage like Burberry on their Facebook. Do Burberry want that? You know, everybody knows like the Facebook plugin where you can see the faces of everybody who's liked you. God, if Burberry put that on their website, they'd never sell a thing again. You really need to think, are these people that you're spending money talking to interested in you? Look how many likes there must be on like a Porsche Facebook page, but what percentage of those people can actually buy a Porsche?
Yeah.
You know, you've got to consider about what that means to your brand as well.
I think people have a certain expectation level of how they expect that brand to behave as well. If it is a very aspirational brand, then you don't expect that brand to engage with you because then it's no longer aspirational. It's because if you can start talking to, I don't know, Nike directly and having a conversation with them, then if Nike is your ultimate brand, then it shatters that illusion of being that pinnacle that you're aiming for as a consumer. So it's, I think you need to behave how your customers or how you think your customers perceive you as well.
Okay. We have to draw things to a close. And very quickly, there is one last thing I would like to ask, which we were going to give 10 minutes to, but again, we've got one of them lunches where we could have done twice as much the time, and we've had to squeeze on. But over the summer holidays, I was reading a biography of David Ogilvy, who was a master of response. You know, it's one of the big things he was great at. I'm sorry to layer more marketing, but he was a man who knew how to make people respond. And it kind of reading through it, it came across that getting people to respond back then in the 1950s and early 1960s just seemed a very simple affair because people's lives were a lot simpler. And I was just thinking in a one-word answer, do you think it was a simpler job back then in the 1950s and 1960s, or do you think it's a simpler job now with all the tools and all the power and information we have to connect with people? Mark?
To get them to respond?
Yeah, to connect with them, to engage with them. Do you think it's a simpler job back then in the 50s, or do you think it's a simpler job now?
That's a real tough. Just from the channels, it's simpler then.
Yeah, simpler.
Yeah. Good on channels.
I think it's the same. If it's relevant to them then, it was relevant to them now. People have learned how to filter. They didn't have to filter now, but they learn how to filter. Jim?
Yeah, I agree. There's more opportunities, but I don't think there's any more need.
And I think we're looking back saying that life is simpler then. People then didn't know life was simple.
Yeah.
And our kids are going to say, God, they had it simple. So I think it is about the best, being clever, being intelligent with your message at the right point with the relevancy. So I think it's the same.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much to the panellists. Thank you all. Thank you to Mark. Thank you to Tom. Thanks to Delphi for hosting, thanks to the people I work for supporting it, and thank you all for coming, so give yourselves all a round of applause if you deserve it. And I hope you